Could you explain how mRNA vaccines work in a way that someone without a science background could understand?
Sure. So imagine that our immune systems are kind of like a security team, whose job it is to recognize dangerous or foreign intruders and stop them quickly. So an mRNA vaccine doesn't contain the actual cancer, just like vaccines typically don't contain viruses, but rather a temporary set of instructions. So kind of like a blueprint to help the immune system recognize tumor cells that it previously ignored. We know that pancreatic cancer is often very good at kind of quote unquote hiding from the immune system. So these personalized mRNA vaccines essentially try to unmask the tumor and teach the immune cells what to look for. So the way that this actually works is that first a patient's tumor is sequenced after surgery. And then next, researchers identify unique proteins on the cancer cell surface that arise due to novel genetic mutations in the tumor, which are called neoantigens. And lastly, this custom vaccine is then created to target those exact neoantigens. So the hope is that the patient's immune system will generate a highly specific immune response or T cell response against these neoantigens. And it's important to note, I think, for patients, just that these mRNA vaccines don't actually alter your genes. They don't actually directly kill the cancer cells. Rather, the mRNA vaccine teaches your immune system to recognize the cancer. And so these vaccines are temporary, they naturally degrade, they're given following surgery and in combination with chemotherapy and immunotherapy.
The long-term data from the phase one trial, which showed a 87.5% of vaccine responders were still alive after 6 years of surgery, and the phase two randomized trial is now underway. Where does this research stand from your perspective, and what excites you most about where it's heading?
Yeah, so just to kind of go over that a little bit in a little bit more detail. So you're right, the benchmark pancreatic cancer study to date is from BioNTech, which was previously presented, and then there was this updated presentation at the most recent AACR meeting, 2026 in April. And so just for review, this was a phase one study. It enrolled 16 patients with autogene cevumeran, that's the mRNA vaccine, after pancreatic cancer surgery, along with chemotherapy and an immune checkpoint inhibitor. And as we just reviewed, and what are these vaccines? These were custom made for each patient based on changes in the tumor DNA. And so, as you commented when you asked me the question, in 8 of the 16 patients, the vaccine taught the immune system to recognize tumor cells as foreign. So in about 50% of patients. And then in those patients, researchers were able to detect that these tumor-specific immune cells or T cells actually targeted and killed the cancer cells. And so of those patients, this was a longer term follow-up, of those 8 patients whose immune system did respond to the vaccine, 87% of them were still alive 4 to 6 years after surgery. And this was in contrast that among the 8 patients who didn't respond, only 2 or 25% were alive, which was a median overall survival of about 3.4 months. And so I think that it's important to know or to keep in mind that these mRNA vaccines are still investigational therapy. They're promising, they're scientifically exciting, but they're not yet ready for standard of care treatment outside of clinical trials. Based on those phase one results that we just went over, there is a global phase two clinical trial sponsored by Genentech in collaboration with BioNTech. And it's now testing autogene cevumeran in combination with chemotherapy and immunotherapy post-surgery in a larger group of patients, a study we also have open here at Fred Hutch.
The phase one data showed, that some patients had strong T cell responses, and some didn't. Are there any big questions that the research is still trying to answer about why the vaccine works for some patients but not for others? And what would it take to expand that benefit?
I think so. I think there's still some outstanding, other outstanding is sort of who truly benefits, like who are those 8 patients, and we don't yet know who is most likely to respond or benefit. We also don't yet know if generating an immune response actually translates into better survival. Of course, this phase one study suggests maybe. But the critical question still remains unanswered. And so I think we need larger randomized trials showing improvements in disease-free survival and overall survival. The other thing that I think these studies kind of or this study raises, or questions that it raises, are sort of what is the optimal setting. And so remember, this was the field really at large for pancreatic cancer vaccines is leaning towards using these vaccines when there's low disease burden or microscopic disease. So is that best done after surgery, after chemotherapy? Is it in the setting of minimal residual disease, for example, when there's detectable circulating tumor DNA following surgery or treatment? Is it maintenance therapy? So all of this needs to be further evaluated. Because what we know is that, and the biology kind of makes sense, that a slower growing or kind of microscopic disease setting gives the immune system more time to mount a response. And so for that reason, these trials have been more successful in the early stage setting, as opposed to those patients with metastatic disease or high volume disease. The other thing is that these vaccines have been given in combination with chemotherapy and immunotherapy to date, an immune checkpoint inhibitor, but we still don't know the best combination of treatment to be given with these vaccines. There are other targeted agents, immune therapy agents. Would they be preferred? We just don't know. And lastly, kind of how personalized does the vaccine need to be? So this BioNTech mRNA vaccine is a highly individualized vaccine made for one specific patient's tumor. That's enormously costly. It takes time to manufacture. Is it scalable? Can it be accessible to a wide number of patients with pancreas cancer? I don't know. In contrast, there are other what they call off-the-shelf mRNA vaccines. An example of that is Eli 002. It's produced by Eli Lilly, and it's a standardized product designed to be used in many patients. And so in that setting, they use shared cancer proteins, common mutations like in KRAS as the vaccine's target. So I think we still don't know I think there are a lot of open-ended questions, very exciting times. Absolutely worth further investigating. And I think we all really look forward to seeing what the results are in these future clinical trials.
Thank you for making those distinctions. I usually always ask this when I interview people. Was there something that you intended to say or mention that you didn't get to?
Not that I haven't mentioned, no. I think that just like what I'd want patients to sort of know or just keep in mind, again, just to highlight some of the points that I already previously made. But I think, again, it's important to keep in mind that as exciting as it is, these are really important clinical trials to enroll on, but that they're not yet available as standard of care. We still need more data. I think two is really making sure we don't extrapolate the early stage data to patients with later stage disease. It is very likely that these vaccines are going to be most effective maybe preventatively or post surgery when there's, again, no residual disease that we can detect. These have not been shown to be effective in patients who have widely metastatic disease, high tumor volumes, et cetera. And then lastly, we still don't know who are the patients who are going to mount this response and kind of fully benefit from these treatments. So very exciting time. Can't wait for it to become more available in larger clinical trials for our patients, but still a little early on in development.